Alex Morgan had everything a man could want: wealth, success, and a name known in every corner of the city. Yet, despite all that, something was missing. At 39, he stood alone in his sprawling mansion, staring at a letter that changed everything. It was from his grandfather, the family patriarch. The message was clear and unforgiving: marry before my 80th birthday, or lose your inheritance. The weight of the ultimatum crushed Alex. His family expected a bride, a perfect image to uphold their legacy. But in his heart, he knew the truth. He wasn't ready for marriage, not the way they wanted it. Time wasn't on his side. Days turned into weeks, and panic crept in. He wasn't a man who gave up easily, so he came up with a plan, a desperate one. What if he could find someone to play the role of his bride? Someone willing to pretend, just long enough to satisfy his family. The idea felt absurd even to him, but he posted a private advertisement, discreet and simple. Seeking a woman to act as my fiancée. Compensation offered. Discretion guaranteed. It was cold, transactional, and it had to work. Emily Carter stared at the ad on her phone, heart pounding. She was a struggling actress in her mid-30s, living in a small apartment cluttered with unopened bills and faded headshots. Her dreams of Broadway had dimmed with every rejection letter. She had $40 left until rent was due, and no idea how she would pay. This job, strange as it seemed, was a chance, a lifeline. When she arrived at the mansion, Emily hesitated before knocking. The grandeur was intimidating. The walls whispered stories she could never imagine. When the door opened, Alex's gaze was sharp but not unkind. He was a man guarded by silence and restraint. Without a word, he handed her a contract. The terms were strict and clear: no real emotions, no attachments. Just play the part of the perfect bride. Their first meeting was awkward. Emily adjusted her coat nervously, while Alex reviewed the paperwork with meticulous precision. He didn't ask about her life, her dreams, or fears. This was business, nothing more. But beneath the surface, both felt the tension of two strangers forced into a charade. Days passed, and Emily moved into the mansion. They practiced their story like actors preparing for a role. How they met, the first kiss, favorite memories, everything was scripted. Alex was precise, methodical, as if every gesture was rehearsed. Emily watched him closely. There was a coldness in his eyes, but also a loneliness that was unmistakable. One evening, as rain tapped softly against the windows, Emily broke the silence. She shared a story about her mother's old piano, the one she used to play as a child. For a moment, Alex's eyes softened. He didn't speak, but the faintest smile appeared, a crack in his armor. It was the first time Emily saw a glimpse of the man behind the facade. Their days were filled with rehearsals and rehearsed smiles in front of family and friends. No one suspected the truth, that beneath the surface, a fragile connection was growing. Emily caught Alex watching her when he thought no one was looking. Alex found himself waiting for her laughter, the sound he hadn't heard in years. Yet, both fought the feeling, reminding themselves this was a contract. This was pretending. But as the days edged closer to the wedding, the line between act and reality began to blur. Alex found himself longing for the warmth Emily brought into his cold world. Emily wondered if this was more than a role, if the man she was pretending to love was someone she could truly trust. One night, after another rehearsal, Emily stood alone in the dimly lit hallway, the weight of the secret pressing on her chest. She wondered if she was foolish to hope. But as she turned toward the guest room, she caught Alex's gaze. His eyes met hers, wide and searching, as if he was seeing her for the very first time. In that moment, neither said a word, but everything changed. Emily's first night in the mansion was colder than she expected. not because of the temperature, but because of a silence. The grand house seemed to swallow every sound. She lay awake, staring at the ornate ceiling, wondering if she had made a mistake. What kind of man hires a stranger to be his bride? Was Alex Morgan really as cold as he seemed? She didn't know. And yet, there was something about him, something unspoken, that kept her from walking away. The next morning, Alex was as distant as ever. He avoided small talk, spoke only when necessary, and kept his eyes fixed on his tablet. He had the air of a man carrying invisible burdens, weighed down by something no money could fix. Emily wanted to ask, but the contract was clear: no personal questions, no emotional attachments. Their rehearsals were stiff at first. Emily stumbled over the scripted lines, struggling to remember details Alex insisted were important. He corrected her without patience, his voice sharp but not unkind. Slowly, their interactions began to soften. He started to let down his guard, revealing glimpses of the man behind the mask. One afternoon, while rehearsing their first date story, Emily noticed a framed photograph on a side table. It was an old black and white picture of a young couple, smiling in a garden. She asked quietly, "Who are they?" Alex hesitated. "My parents," he said, voice low. "They died years ago." The pain flickered in his eyes like a shadow. Emily said nothing, but understood. Grief was a language they both knew. Days turned into a routine. They played their parts flawlessly during family gatherings, appearing as the perfect couple. But when the guests left, the mansion returned to its eerie quiet. In those moments, Emily saw Alex's loneliness like never before. He didn't ask about her life, but he listened when she spoke, and sometimes he seemed to seek her presence as a silent comfort. One evening, after a rehearsal, Emily found Alex sitting alone by the fireplace, staring into the flames. She joined him quietly, and for the first time, they talked without pretending. He shared stories of his childhood, a lonely boy growing up in a family where emotions were hidden beneath expectations. Emily told him about her struggles as an actress, the auditions that slipped away, and the loneliness of chasing a dream. That night, they discovered a fragile connection. It wasn't love yet, but it was something real, something neither had expected. But beneath the growing closeness, a tension simmered. Emily was reminded of the contract every time she saw the cold determination in Alex's eyes. She wasn't supposed to care. She wasn't supposed to feel. Yet every time she looked at him, she felt a pull stronger than the one written on paper. The next day brought a surprise. Alex handed Emily a small box. Inside was a simple silver necklace, nothing extravagant. "For you," he said quietly. "Not part of the contract." Emily looked at him, surprised. "Why?" she asked. He shrugged, a rare smile breaking through. "Because sometimes even contracts don't cover everything." From that moment, things began to change. Alex started to laugh more, a soft, genuine sound Emily hadn't heard before. They shared meals together, talked late into the night, and slowly, the mansion began to feel less like a gilded cage and more like a home. Yet, despite the warmth growing between them, both kept their guard up. Alex was haunted by the fear of losing everything if this charade went wrong. Emily worried about the moment the act would end and reality would come crashing back in. One afternoon, while practicing their vows, Alex stopped suddenly. His voice cracked as he stumbled over the words. Emily looked at him, eyes wide. For a brief second, he looked vulnerable, exposed. "I'm not good at this," he admitted. "I'm not good at feelings." Emily reached out, placing a gentle hand on his. Maybe you just need practice." He smiled, this time without hesitation. Maybe. In that quiet moment, the distance between them shrank, and the line between pretense and truth blurred just a little more. Days passed, and the walls of the mansion began to feel less cold. Emily found herself settling into the strange rhythm of pretending to be Alex's bride. But beneath the rehearsed smiles and scripted conversations, something was stirring, something neither of them could ignore. One afternoon, Emily was sitting by the window, reading a book, when she noticed Alex standing across the room, watching her. His gaze wasn't the same as before. It was softer, almost as if he was seeing her for the first time. She quickly looked away, heart fluttering in a way she hadn't felt in years. That evening, they were practicing their lines again when Emily stumbled. She looked up and saw Alex watching her, his eyes full of something she couldn't name. "Are you all right?" he asked quietly. The sincerity in his voice caught her off guard. She nodded, but the tension between them was suddenly electric. Late that night, Emily lay awake thinking about the day's moments. She wondered if Alex felt it too, the invisible thread pulling them closer. The mansion, once a place of silence, now held whispers of something fragile and new. The next morning, Emily found Alex in the study, his face buried in a stack of old letters. Curiosity got the better of her. "What are those?" she asked. He looked up, startled, then softened. "Letters from my parents," he said. "They kept every letter I ever sent them, even when I stopped writing." His voice cracked just slightly. Emily reached out, placing a hand over his. The gesture was small, but it spoke volumes. As days turned to weeks, their rehearsals grew less like acting and more like sharing moments that felt genuine. Alex began opening up about his fears, the pressure of his family, the loneliness of leadership, and the emptiness he couldn't fill with money or success. Emily shared her own stories, the heartbreaks, the missed chances, and the longing to be seen for who she really was. One afternoon, while they practiced their first dance, Alex suddenly pulled Emily close. Neither said a word, but the silence between them was charged with meaning. She felt his heartbeat against her chest, steady but vulnerable. But with every step forward, a shadow lingered. The contract was always there, a reminder that this was a game, and one day the curtain would fall. Emily worried about the day when Alex would no longer need her, when the act would end and their fragile connection would shatter. One evening, Emily overheard a conversation she wasn't meant to hear. Alex was on the phone with someone, his voice tense. "It's just a temporary arrangement," he said. "Nothing more." A woman's voice replied sharply, "You're making a mistake, Alex. This isn't real." The name she heard, his cousin, sent a chill down her spine. She slipped away quietly, heart pounding. Was he pretending with everyone? Even with her? The next day, Emily's demeanor changed. She kept her distance, wary and uncertain. Alex noticed immediately. He tried to reach out, but she pulled back. That night, Emily sat alone, wrestling with her feelings. She wasn't just an actress in a role anymore. She had begun to care deeply for Alex. But could she trust him? Was their connection built on truth or just a well-rehearsed lie? Meanwhile, Alex wrestled with his own demons. He found himself thinking about Emily in ways he never expected. He saw her beyond the contract, beyond the role. But fear held him back. Fear of losing control, fear of vulnerability, fear of what his family would say. One afternoon, after a tense silence between them, Alex finally broke down. "I don't know how to do this," he admitted. "I don't know how to let someone in." Emily looked at him, her eyes softening. "Maybe you don't have to do it alone," she whispered. For the first time, they weren't acting. They were two broken souls reaching out for something real. And in that moment, the line between fake and real began to disappear. The following morning, the mansion felt different, quieter, but somehow lighter. Emily and Alex both sensed the shift between them. The walls that had once echoed with formal rehearsals now held a fragile hope, a possibility neither dared speak aloud yet. Emily was in the kitchen preparing breakfast when Alex appeared, holding 2 steaming cups of coffee. His usual stoic expression softened as he handed her one. "I'm not good at this," he said, "but I want to try." Emily smiled, feeling warmth spread through her chest. They sat together in comfortable silence, sipping their coffee. It was the kind of moment neither had expected. Simple, real, and full of unspoken promises. As days passed, their rehearsals became less about perfection and more about presence. They stopped forcing smiles and started sharing genuine laughter. Alex would catch Emily off guard with small, thoughtful gestures, a favorite book left on her pillow or a note tucked inside her jacket. One evening, Alex invited Emily to explore the old family garden. The moonlight bathed the roses in silver, and the scent filled the cool air. As they walked along the winding paths, Alex stopped and turned to her. "I've never shown this place to anyone," he said softly. "It's where I come when I feel lost." Emily looked up at him, surprised by his openness. "Thank you for sharing it with me." They sat together on a stone bench, the silence between them comfortable now. Emily felt the weight of the contract lift, replaced by something fragile and real. But with every step forward, the reality of their situation crept back in. Alex's family was watching closely, their expectations a constant pressure. Emily wondered if the walls around him were closing in again. One afternoon, as they practiced the wedding vows, Emily hesitated over a line. "What if I don't believe them?" she whispered. Alex looked at her, his eyes intense. "Then say what you mean." The honesty in his voice stunned her. For the first time, the scripted words felt like they could carry truth. That night, Emily lay awake thinking about the future. She wasn't just playing a role anymore. She cared for Alex deeply. But what about him? Did he feel the same? Or was he still trapped behind the walls of expectation and duty? The next day brought unexpected news. Alex's cousin, the same one who had warned him against the fake marriage, arrived unannounced. Her presence stirred old family tensions, and Emily felt the weight of their scrutiny. During a tense dinner, the cousin spoke bluntly. "Alex, this charade can't last. You're risking everything, your family's respect, your reputation." Alex remained calm but firm. "I'm doing what I need to." Emily watched him, proud but worried. The pressure was mounting, and she feared it might shatter what they were building. Later, she found Alex in the study, staring out the window. "Do you regret this?" she asked quietly. He turned to her, eyes searching hers. "Sometimes," he admitted, "but not you." That simple confession sent a spark through Emily's heart. Over the following days, their connection deepened. They shared stories of hopes and fears, moments of vulnerability that no contract could contain. Yet, the shadow of the fake marriage remained. Both knew the wedding day was coming, the day when pretending would have to end. One evening, as they rehearsed the ceremony in the empty hall, Alex took Emily's hands in his. "No matter what happens," he said, "I want you to know that you've changed me." Emily's breath caught. "And you've changed me." In that quiet moment, surrounded by empty chairs and whispered vows, the lines between fake and real disappeared entirely. The days leading up to the wedding were filled with a strange mix of excitement and tension. The mansion buzzed with preparations, flowers, dresses, invitations. But behind the scenes, Emily and Alex felt the weight of what was coming. The contract that once defined their relationship now felt fragile, stretched thin by feelings neither wanted to admit. Emily found herself caught between hope and fear. She cared for Alex deeply, but the reality of their arrangement loomed like a shadow. What would happen when the vows were spoken? Would it all collapse into silence? Or could the pretend love they built survive the truth? Alex, too, wrestled with his own doubts. The pressure from his family never eased. They wanted a perfect marriage, a picture to show the world. But what Alex wanted was something different, something real. Yet, admitting that felt like breaking a fragile glass he wasn't sure he could put back together. One afternoon, Emily discovered a hidden room in the mansion, a small library filled with books and old photographs. Among them was a faded journal. Curious, she began to read. It belonged to Alex's grandmother, a woman who had also faced expectations and duty, but had found love in unexpected places. The words touched Emily deeply. She understood now that love wasn't always about perfection or plans. Sometimes it was about courage and vulnerability. That evening, she shared the journal with Alex. They read passages together by the fire, the stories weaving a silent bond between them. Alex's walls started to crumble, and Emily felt the true man beneath the facade. But just as their connection grew stronger, a crisis struck. News came that Alex's grandfather's health had worsened. The family demanded the wedding happen sooner than planned. The timeline tightened, and the pressure intensified. Emily felt the panic rising. They had less time to navigate the fragile emotions between them. Could they build something real before the world forced them into roles once again? On the night before the wedding, Alex found Emily in the garden, staring at the stars. He joined her silently, the cool air filled with unspoken questions. "I'm scared," he finally admitted. "Not of the wedding, but of losing you." Emily's heart ached. "I'm scared too. But maybe that's what love is, facing the fear and choosing to stay." They stood close, the night wrapping around them like a promise. The wedding day dawned bright and clear, but beneath the surface, nerves crackled. Friends and family gathered, unaware of the truth behind the vows. Emily wore the white dress she had tried on so many times, but today it felt heavier, not because of the fabric, but because of what it represented. As the ceremony began, Alex looked at Emily, seeing not a contract or an act, but a woman who had changed his life. His voice was steady, but full of emotion as he spoke the vows they had practiced so many times. Emily's eyes filled with tears. When she repeated her promises, she felt the weight of every word. Promises not just to pretend, but to believe. After the ceremony, as they stepped outside to applause, Alex pulled Emily close. "This is only the beginning," he whispered. "No more pretending." Emily smiled, hope shining in her eyes. Only the beginning. In that moment, surrounded by the warmth of family and friends, they knew their story was no longer fake. It was real, messy, beautiful, and theirs. The honeymoon phase, as some called it, felt nothing like a fantasy for Emily and Alex. Instead, it was a quiet, tentative dance of learning to be real with one another beyond the rehearsed smiles and scripted moments. The mansion, which had once felt like a stage, slowly softened into a home filled with genuine laughter, small disagreements, and moments of unexpected tenderness. Emily woke early one morning to find Alex already in the garden, tending to the roses. He looked up and smiled, a simple, unguarded smile that caught her off guard. "Morning," he said softly. "I'm trying to save these. My grandmother loved this garden." She joined him, kneeling beside the plants. "You're better at this than I thought." He chuckled. "I'm full of surprises." For the first time, they shared small, ordinary moments, making breakfast together, reading side by side, and talking without scripts or contracts. Emily discovered the man beneath the polished exterior, a man shaped by loss and expectations, but with a heart that longed for connection. Yet, even as their bond grew, challenges loomed. Alex's family, though outwardly pleased with the marriage, whispered doubts behind closed doors. The cousin who had warned him before now watched closely, suspicious and skeptical. Emily felt the tension every time they met, a reminder that their new life was under a microscope. One evening, during a family dinner, the cousin made a cutting remark about Emily's background. The room grew cold, eyes flickering between Emily and Alex. But Alex surprised everyone. He stood, his voice firm and clear. Emily is part of this family now. I won't tolerate disrespect. The room fell silent. Emily looked at Alex, admiration and gratitude swelling in her chest. This was the man she had come to know, strong, protective, and willing to fight for what mattered. Despite the external pressures, Emily and Alex built a life from the small pieces of trust and affection they found each day. They learned each other's quirks, how Alex liked his coffee black, how Emily preferred morning walks to clear her mind. One rainy afternoon, as they sat by the fireplace, Alex opened up about his fears. "I'm scared I'll lose you," he admitted, voice low. "Not because of anything you've done, but because I don't know how to be the husband you deserve." Emily took his hand, squeezing gently. "We're both learning. We don't have to be perfect." Their honesty became the foundation of their marriage. No longer just a contract or a charade. Their relationship was something fragile but real, something worth fighting for. Then came a moment that tested everything. Alex's grandfather, the man who had set the marriage ultimatum, passed away unexpectedly. The family gathered in mourning, the weight of tradition and expectation heavy in the air. At the funeral, Alex stood beside Emily, drawing strength from her presence. The inheritance was secured, but something deeper had shifted. Alex realized he didn't need a contract or approval to be with Emily. He wanted her because she was part of his life, his choice, not a condition. After the service, Emily and Alex walked through the garden, now blooming with spring flowers. The past was behind them, and the future was uncertain but theirs to shape. Alex looked at Emily, eyes full of quiet determination. "This marriage started as a game," he said, "but I want it to be real in every way." Emily smiled, feeling the truth in his words. "Me too." And in that moment, beneath the open sky and blooming roses, their love story truly began. No scripts, no contracts, just two hearts willing to try. The weeks following the funeral were quieter than before, but beneath the calm, a new chapter was unfolding for Emily and Alex. The loss had reminded them both how fragile life was, and how precious the moments they shared could be. Emily noticed subtle changes in Alex. He smiled more freely, allowed himself moments of rest, and even started sharing his dreams for the future. One morning, as they sat together over breakfast, Alex surprised her. "I've been thinking," he said, "maybe it's time we stop pretending there's a script to follow." Emily looked up, curiosity sparking in her eyes. "What do you mean?" Alex leaned forward, fingers tapping on the table. "Our marriage started as a contract, something to appease the family, to protect legacies. But I want us to build something real, on our terms. No more rehearsals." The honesty in his voice made Emily's heart skip. She wanted the same, a life where they could be vulnerable, imperfect, and fully themselves. But change wasn't easy. Old habits die hard, and both of them carried scars from their pasts. There were moments when Alex would retreat behind walls of silence, or Emily would hesitate to speak her mind for fear of upsetting the fragile peace. One evening, after a small disagreement about a family gathering, the tension between them grew. Alex was quiet, his jaw clenched, while Emily felt tears prickling her eyes. "I'm sorry," Alex finally said, voice rough. "I'm scared of losing what we have." Emily reached out, brushing a strand of hair from his face. "We're not perfect, Alex. But that's okay. We don't have to be." Their embrace was the first step toward healing, a reminder that love wasn't about perfection, but about patience and forgiveness. As they navigated their new reality, they found joy in unexpected places. Alex surprised Emily with tickets to a small theater production, a nod to her passion for acting. Emily cooked his favorite meals, and they spent evenings talking about everything and nothing. One day, Emily found a box tucked away in the attic. Inside were letters from Alex's grandmother, the same woman whose journal had once brought them closer. The letters spoke of love found late in life, of hope against the odds. Reading them together, Emily and Alex realized their story wasn't so different. Love wasn't always easy, but it was worth the fight. But the real test came when Alex received an offer to move abroad for a new business opportunity, a chance to expand his family's empire, but at the cost of leaving the mansion, the garden, and Emily behind. The decision weighed heavily on him. He wrestled with duty, ambition, and the life he was building with Emily. One night, he shared his dilemma. "If I go, everything changes. I don't want to lose you, but I also can't ignore this." Emily's eyes filled with tears, but she nodded. "Whatever you decide, we'll face it together." In the end, Alex chose to stay, not because of obligation, but because his heart was anchored by the woman beside him. He realized that true success wasn't measured by business deals or family approval, but by the life and love he nurtured. Their marriage, once a carefully crafted act, had blossomed into something real and enduring, built not on contracts or expectations, but on trust, courage, and the willingness to grow together. And as they stood side by side, watching the sunset paint the sky in warm hues, they knew their journey was far from over. But for the first time, they faced the future not as strangers playing roles, but as partners bound by something stronger than any vow. Months turned into a year, and the mansion that once echoed with rehearsed vows now buzzed with the sounds of a real family taking root. Emily and Alex had grown together, their love no longer a secret whispered behind closed doors, but a living, breathing part of their everyday life. Emily often thought back to the day she first walked through the mansion's grand doors, hired to play a part she never wanted to own. Now, those memories felt like a distant script she had long since rewritten. The woman in the white dress, unsure and hesitant, had transformed into someone who no longer needed to pretend. Alex had changed too. The weight of his family's expectations had lessened, replaced by a quiet confidence born from knowing what and who truly mattered. He was no longer just a businessman playing a role. He was a husband, a partner, a man who had learned how to love without fear. One crisp autumn morning, as they strolled through the garden, Emily paused to admire the roses Alex had nurtured since their first days together. "Remember when you said you wanted to save these?" she teased. Alex smiled, his eyes warm. "I guess some things are worth fighting for." Their hands found each other, fingers entwining naturally. The simplicity of the moment held more meaning than any grand gesture. Life had brought them challenges, moments of doubt, tension, and fear, but also joy, growth, and understanding. They had learned to communicate openly, to face their pasts without shame, and to build a future not dictated by contracts or appearances, but by mutual respect and love. One afternoon, Alex surprised Emily with a small gathering, just close friends and family, to celebrate their first anniversary. There were no cameras, no scripts, only genuine smiles and laughter. The mansion, once a place of pretense, was now filled with warmth and life. During the celebration, Alex took Emily's hand and led her to the center of the room. "A year ago, this was all just an act," he said, voice steady but full of emotion. "But today, I want to say that every moment with you has been real. You're my wife, my partner, my love." Tears glistened in Emily's eyes as she replied, "I never thought this story could be mine, but now I can't imagine life any other way." They danced slowly, surrounded by the people who mattered most, their hearts beating in sync. The fake bride and the reluctant groom had become a real couple, their love story a testament to the power of vulnerability and second chances. As the evening faded into night, Emily and Alex stepped outside, breathing in the cool air. The stars sparkled above, silent witnesses to their journey. Alex looked at Emily, a smile playing on his lips. What started as a contract became so much more. Emily nodded, leaning into him. "It became us." And in that moment, beneath the vast sky, they knew their story was no longer about pretending. It was about living fully, honestly, and together.